Good morning, everyone. We can start the session today. In the previous two sessions, we were talking about production theory and cost theory related to the short run. In the first session, we talked about short run production theory. And in the second session, we talked about short run cost theory. And today, we are about to start discussing production theory in the long run production theory, and long run cost theory. Long run production theory is discussed in session number 1. Long run cost theory is discussed in session number 2. So I'm referring to session number 1, slide number 17 here. So long run is where all inputs become variable inputs. Only for simplicity, we assume that our production function is this. Output depends on labor and capital. Output depends on labor and capital. And in the short run, we assume that capital is fixed and labor is variable. Capital is fixed and the labor is variable. When it comes to the long run, both inputs become variable. Both inputs become the variable inputs. So with output, labor also will change, capital also will change. So in order to change the output level, the firm has to change both the level of labor and the level of capital. So that is how the production behaves in the long run. In order to change the output level, the firm has to change both the level of labor and the level of capital. In long-run production theory, we talked about a specific concept which is called isocost. We talked about isocost curves. In the long run, we show the behavior of production using isocon curves. Isocon curves. Isocon curves. To show the behavior of production, in the long run, we use isocon curves. So what does it mean by an isocon curve? That is what we are going to learn now. An isocon curve is a curve. An isocon curve is a curve that combines all possible combinations of two inputs. An isocon curve is a curve that combines all possible combinations of two inputs that derive the same level of output. The same level of output. It's about combinations of two inputs. All possible combinations of two inputs that derive the same level of output. So, in this name of isopon, this iso term implies the same quantity. That is the simple idea behind the isopon curve. It shows all possible combinations of two inputs that derive the same level of output. Specifically, we talk about only two inputs because in a two-dimensional diagram, we can show only two inputs. We can show only two inputs. If we put label here and if we put capital here, then an isopon curve will look like this. An isopon curve will look like this. So this isopon curve shows all possible combinations of the two inputs. What are the two inputs? Labor and capital. The isopon curve shows all possible combinations of the two inputs, labor and capital, that derive the same level of output. Let's assume this isopon curve shows all possible combinations of labor and capital that derive 1000 units of output. 1000 units of output. So, for example, if the firm combines, let's say, 10 units of capital with 1 unit of labor, the firm can produce 1000 units of output. Again, let's say, when the firm combines 7 units of capital with 2 units of labor, again, the firm can produce 1000 units of output. At the same time, if the firm combines, let's say, 4 units of capital with 4 units of labor, again, the firm can generate 1000 units of output. Also, when the firm combines 1 unit of capital with, let's say, 8 units of labor, still the firm can produce 1000 units of output. So all these possible combinations, of labor and capital produce the same level of output. The same level of output. Got it? Clear? So this is what do we mean by an isopon curve. Isopon curve is a curve that combines all possible combinations of two inputs that derive the same level of output. By combining 10 units of labor with 1 unit of capital, the firm can produce 1000 units of output. Again, when the firm combines 7 units of capital, then 2 units of labor, again 1000 units of output. When the firm combines 4 units of capital and 4 units of labor, the firm can produce 1000 units of output. When the firm combines 1 unit of capital and 8 units of labor, still the firm can produce 1000 units of output. So here I show only 4 combinations. But the curve shows a large number of combinations. Even we can show these small combinations. So it shows all possible combinations, even fractional combinations. Sometimes it can be 9.9 units of capital and 1.1 units of labor. So the curve shows even fractional, the combinations with fractional numbers of inputs, fractional amounts of inputs. 9.1 unit of capital and 1.1 unit of labor also may produce 1000 units of output. So in this figure, how many isoforms we find? So this axis shows the amount of capital. The vertical axis shows the amount of capital. The horizontal axis shows the amount of labor. And these numbers between the vertical axis and capital axis are the quantities of output. These numbers are the quantities of output. These numbers are the quantities of output. So with that knowledge, what are the isopod curves that we can draw? For 36, we can draw an isopod. Here it's 36, here. So likewise, we can draw an isopod. Another isopod can be derived for 12 units, like this. Another one can be derived for 28, 30, 40. What else? Yes, that will be. So these isopod curves show different combinations of capital and labor that derive the same level of output. This isopod curve derives how much? 12 units. This isopod curve shows 28 units. This isopod curve shows 36 units of output. And this isopod curve shows 40 units of output. So this is called an isopod map. This is called an isopod map. Isopod map shows different isopods. A set of isopods in one diagram. In isopod map, we show a set of isopods in one diagram. So this is an isopod map. It shows different isopods, a set of isopods in the same diagram. What do you observe? Higher isopons show higher output levels. Higher isopons show higher output levels. In other words, isopons farther away from the origin. This is the origin. Isopons farther away from the origin show higher output levels. And the opposite is isopon curves that are closer to the origin. Isopon curves that are closer to the origin show lower output levels. Isopon curves that lie farther away from the origin show higher output levels. On the other hand, isopon curves that lie closer to the origin show lower output levels. And the next idea you have to learn about is the slope of an isopon. The slope of an isopon. If we talk about a single isopon, let's say it produces 100 units. What do you observe? What happens to its slope? What happens to its slope? Is it constant? No. The slope is not constant because this is not a straight line. This has some curvature. It's a curved line. It has a curve. So obviously the slope is different from point to point. The slope we observe at this point will be different from the slope we observe at this point. Again, we will have a different slope here, a different slope here, a different slope here. So the slope is not fixed. Slope is different from point to point. To measure the slope of any curve, we can draw tangent lines to those points. So if we draw a tangent line to this point, it will look like this. If we draw a tangent line to this point, it will look like this. If we draw a tangent line to this point, it will look like this. So similarly, we can draw tangent lines to each and every point on this isopon curve. So what do you observe? What happens to these tangent lines? What happens to these tangent lines? They are getting steeper or flatter. They are getting flatter, yes. The tangent lines getting flatter. Tangent lines are used to measure the slope of an isopon. Tangent lines are used to measure the slope of an isopon. So we draw a tangent line and we measure the slope of the tangent line, and that slope of the tangent line becomes the slope at the point. Slope of the tangent line becomes the slope at this specific point. Similarly, we measure the slope of this tangent line, and the slope of this tangent line becomes the specific slope of this point. Slope of this tangent line becomes the slope of this specific point. slope of this tangent line becomes the slope at this specific point. So tangent lines are used to measure the slope of an isocone, measure the slope of points on an isocone, and graphically we understand that, with this illustration we understand that the tangent lines are getting flatter. The tangent lines are getting flatter. So what happens to the slope? What happens to the slope of this isocone? Slope is decreasing. Slope is decreasing. Slope of the isocone decreasing when moving down along the curve. When we are moving down along the curve, the slope of the isocone is decreasing. Slope of the isocone is decreasing. We understand it by looking at the behavior of tangent lines. Since the tangent lines are getting flatter, we can say that the slope is decreasing. Slope is decreasing. We call the slope of an isocone a specific name. We give the slope of an isocone a specific name. Slope of an isocone is called marginal rate of technical substitution. The slope of an isocone is technically called the marginal rate of technical substitution. Marginal rate of technical substitution. In abbreviation, it is MRTS. MRTS. Marginal rate of technical substitution. So what do we understand? Marginal rate of technical substitution is decreasing when we are moving down along the curve. Marginal rate of technical substitution is decreasing. Marginal rate of technical substitution is decreasing when moving down along the curve, because marginal rate of technical substitution is the technical name we give for the slope of an isocone. Marginal rate of technical substitution is the technical name we give for the slope of an isocone. So, what is the simple way of measuring the slope of any curve? For simplicity, let's assume that the curve is a straight line. This is a simple curve. To measure the slope of this straight line, what do we do? We measure the vertical difference and we measure the horizontal difference and divide vertical difference by the horizontal difference. Horizontal difference. If this is point A and if this is point B, When moving from point A to B, what happens? Let's say this is X and this is Y. Y decreases and X increases. When moving from A to B, Y decreases by, let's say, 10 units and X increases by, let's say, 5 units. So what is the slope? Vertical difference. What is the vertical difference? It's minus 10. Minus 10, because we observe that Y is decreasing. The Y value decreases. Divided by the horizontal difference. What is the horizontal difference? It's plus 5. X increases, so it's a plus 5. So what is the slope? Minus 10 divided by plus 5, the result is minus 2. So this is the simple way of calculating slope of a curve. Slope of a curve. The same principle we can apply here as well. When we are talking about 2 points, point A and B, the slope between these 2 points, can be measured using the same principle. Vertical change in capital, that is the vertical difference, divided by the horizontal difference, that is change in labor. So this is the simple formula that we can use to calculate slope of this curve between 2 points. Vertical difference divided by horizontal difference. Here it is delta y divided by delta x. In this case, it is delta y divided by delta x. Vertical difference divided by horizontal difference. The same thing, the same principle we apply here as well. Vertical difference divided by horizontal difference. Vertical difference is change in capital or delta k divided by horizontal difference, which is delta L. So delta k is when we are moving down along the curve. Capital is always negative because we observe the capital amount decreases. Let's say here capital quantity is 10 and labor quantity is 8, and here labor quantity is 1 and labor quantity is 2 here. So how to quantify the slope between point A and B? Slope of the isopods between point A and B. How to quantify it? Delta K divided by delta L. What is delta K? Capital decreases from 10 to 8. Capital amount decreases from 10 to 8. So delta K is minus 2. And what happens to labor? Labor increases from 1 to 2. So delta KL is 1. So the slope between point A and B is minus 2. Similarly, if we look at here, the labor input increases from 6 to 7. And capital input decreases from, let's say, 3 units to 2.5 units. 3 units to 2.5 units. This is point, let's say, point C and D. So between point C and D, What is the slope? Again, we apply the same formula, delta K over delta L. Delta K is capital amount decreases from 3 to 2.5 by 0.5 units. Labor input increases from 6 to 7 by 1 unit. So the slope between point C and D is minus 0.5. Minus 0.5. That is the slope. To call it the marginal rate of technical substitution, we multiply this value. We multiply this value by minus 1. By minus 1. Multiply this by minus 1. So the marginal rate of technical substitution between point A and B is plus 2. Marginal rate of technical substitution between point C and D is 0.5 plus 0.5. So we always give positive numbers for marginal rate of technical substitution. We always give positive numbers for marginal rate of technical substitution. But when it comes to the slope is obviously negative because this is a downward sloping curve. This is a downward sloping curve. So obviously the slope is negative, but traditionally in textbooks we establish marginal rate of technical substitution as a positive number. Slope vector negative because make a downward sloping curve. So these are the slope values. Between point A and B, the slope is minus 2. Between point C and D, the slope is 0.5. But traditionally, we establish marginal rate of technical substitution with positive numbers. Positive numbers with the marginal rate of technical substitution. We express current. For that reason, to call this marginal rate of technical substitution, we multiply it by minus 1. So when multiplying minus 2 by minus 1, it becomes plus 2. When multiplying minus 0.5 by minus 1, it becomes plus 0.5. So these are the marginal rate of technical substitution values. Marginal rate of technical substitution values. These are the slope values. Both mean the same, but the sign is different. When it comes to the slope, we express it as it is with the minus sign. But when it comes to the marginal rate of technical substitution, we convert it into a positive number. That's why we have minus sign here. Minus delta K is always negative. Delta K is always negative. So obviously, since it is negative, this whole value will be negative. Delta K over delta L will be always negative. So this negative number multiplied by another negative, then this whole value will be positive. Delta K is always negative, so that delta K over delta L is always negative. So the negative number for delta K over delta L multiplied by another negative sign, the result will be positive. Because we want to express marginal rate of technical substitution as a positive number. We express MRTS as a positive number. So that the negative slope should be multiplied by -1 all the time to establish or to express marginal rate of technical substitution as a positive number. Marginal rate of technical substitution also can be measured. There is an alternative way of measuring marginal rate of technical substitution, that is MPL over MPA. MPL over MPA. So we can measure marginal rate of technical substitution either this way or this way. Marginal rate of technical substitution is either minus delta K over delta L or MPL over MPK. MPK and MPL always they are positive. So we don't want to convert them into a positive number because both MPL and MPK are always positive. We don't want to convert them into a positive value. So here it shows that between point N and R, the slope of the isochord is what? Delta K over delta L. Delta K is, there is a decline from 4 units to let's say 1.5 units. 4 units to 1.5 units by 2.5 units. It's minus 2.5. Minus 2.5 because there is a decline. When moving from point N to R, K decreases. K decreases from 4 to 1.5 by 2.5. So it's minus 2.5. And what happens to L? L increases by 1 unit. L increases by 1. So what is the slope? Slope between point N and R is minus 2.5. Minus 2.5. Then what is the marginal rate of technical substitution? To find marginal rate of technical substitution between point N and R, we multiply this minus 2.5 by another minus sign. So minus of minus 2.5 is plus 2.5. Plus 2.5. Got it? Any questions after now? Okay, the next concept is about the economic region of production. Economic region of production. Economic region of production is where a rational producer operates in the long run. In the long run. A rational producer will operate in the long run only when both marginal product of labor and marginal product of capital are positive. A rational producer will operate in the long run only when the marginal product of labor and marginal product of capital are positive. When marginal product of labor is negative, then the rational producer will not operate there. Similarly, when marginal product of capital is negative, again, the rational producer will not operate there. So, to identify the region over which a rational producer will operate, we draw ridge lines to identify the economic of region, to identify economic region of production. We draw ridge lines. We draw ridge lines. There are two ridge lines, lower ridge line and upper ridge line. The lower ridge line and the upper ridge line. So this is the upper ridge line. This is the upper ridge line. This is the lower ridge line. And between the upper ridge line and lower ridge line, we have the economic region of production. Economic region of production is this. Between the upper ridge line and the lower ridge line, we have the economic region of production. So, a rational producer will operate within the economic region of production because marginal product of labor is positive and marginal product of capital is positive. And these portions are irrelevant. These portions are irrelevant for a rational producer. They are outside the economic region of production. These portions are irrelevant for a rational producer. They are not relevant for a rational producer. These portions do not belong to the economic region of production. These portions of isopods do not belong to the economic region of production. Because in this space, in this area, marginal product of capital is negative. Marginal product of capital is negative over this region. So these portions over these portions, marginal product of capital is negative. On the other hand, over this region, marginal product of labor is negative. Marginal product of labor is negative. So therefore, rational producers will not operate over this region and over this region. Rational producers will only operate within the economic region of production. Then how to draw the ridge lines? The next question is how to draw the ridge lines. To draw the upper ridge line, we find the points where marginal product of capital is zero. Sorry, marginal product of labor is zero. At these points, marginal product of capital is zero. At these points, marginal product of capital is zero. So, by combining the points, where marginal product of capital is zero, we draw ridge line. So we can start from the origin and we combine this point, we combine this point, and we combine this point. So this is our upper ridge line. To draw the upper ridge line, what we do? What did we do? We combine the points where marginal product of capital is 0. To draw the upper ridge line, we combine the points where marginal product of capital is 0. What is MRTS? That is the positive value of the slope or the absolute value of the slope. We can calculate marginal rate of technical substitution using this formula. Marginal product of labor divided by marginal product of capital. As we learned, we can calculate marginal rate of technical substitution using MPL divided by MPK. MPL divided by MPK. So this is MRTS is the absolute value of the slope. So we can measure the absolute value of the slope using this formula. MPL over MPK. So these are the points through which we draw the upper ridge line. These are the points through which we draw the upper ridge line. What we can tell about the slope at these points? What we can tell about the slope at these points? If we draw a tangent line to these points, they are vertical. They are vertical. The slope of any vertical line is yes. Slope of any vertical line is infinite. Slope of any vertical line is infinite. It's infinite. So the slope at this point is infinite. The slope at this point is infinite. The slope at this point is infinite. In other words, marginal rate of technical substitution at point A is infinite. Marginal rate of technical substitution at point B is infinite. Marginal rate of technical substitution at point C is infinite. When the slope or when the marginal rate of technical substitution is infinite at these points, marginal product of capital is 0. Marginal product of capital is 0. So marginal product of labor can be any number. It can be any number. Any number divided by 0, what is the answer? Any number divided by 0, the answer is infinite. Infinite. So we draw the upper ridge line. We draw the upper ridge line by combining the points where marginal product of capital is 0. By combining the points where marginal product of capital is 0. Or in other words, by combining the points where marginal rate of technical substitution is infinite. Marginal rate of technical substitution is infinite. We can prove it when we draw, when we want to measure the slope at these points, we will draw tangent lines. And those tangent lines become vertical. Those tangent lines become vertical. For any vertical line, the slope is infinite. For any vertical line, the slope is infinite. That means slope at these points are infinite. They take infinity. Therefore, marginal rate of technical substitution at these points are infinite. We draw the upper ridge line by combining the points where marginal product of capital is 0, or we can say we draw the upper ridge line by combining the points where marginal rate of technical substitution is infinite. Both mean the same thing. They mean the same thing, right? Okay. Now let's look at how to draw the lower ridge line. To draw the lower ridge line, we combine the points. We combine the points where marginal product of labor is 0. We combine the points where marginal product of labor is 0. To draw the lower ridge line, we combine the points where marginal product of labor is 0. So we can combine those 3 points, point D, point E, and point F, and this becomes the lower ridge line. This becomes the lower ridge line. Again, let's look at the marginal rate of technical substitution at these points. Marginal rate of technical substitution at these points. What is the formula for marginal rate of technical substitution? That is MPL over MPK. MPL over MPK. So at these points, to measure the slope, what we have drawn, we drew horizontal lines. We draw horizontal lines. They are parallel to the horizontal axis. They are parallel to the horizontal axis. For any horizontal line, the slope is what? For any horizontal line, the slope is 0. 0. So that means marginal rate of technical substitution is 0. Marginal rate of technical substitution is 0 at these points. So we can say by combining, we draw the lower ridge line by combining the points where marginal product of labor is 0. In other words, we draw the lower ridge line by combining the points where marginal rate of technical substitution is 0. 0. The two things are related, the two definitions are related. When marginal product of labor is 0, when marginal product of labor is 0, when marginal product of capital can take any number, 0 divided by any number, the result is 0. 0 divided by any number, the result is 0. So we draw the lowering line by combining the points where marginal product of labor is 0. In other words, we draw the lowering line by combining the points where marginal rate of technical substitution is 0. So I told that a rational producer will not operate over these portions because marginal product of capital is negative. How we can prove it? So let's assume that this isochron curve shows 100 units of output, this isochron curve shows 200 units of output, and this isochron curve shows 300 units of output. Let's assume that currently the firm produces at point B with 10 units of labor and let's say 20 units of capital. Currently the firm produces at point B. Currently the firm produces at point B with 10 units of capital, so 10 units of labor and 20 units of capital. Currently the firm produces at point B with 10 units of 10 units of labor and 20 units of capital. How much they produce? Point B belongs to Q2. Point B belongs to Q2. So at point B, the firm produces 200 units. At point B, the firm produces 200 units. Let's assume that while holding the labor input constant, the firm increases capital to 25 units. The firm increases capital input to 25 units. But labor input remains constant. By doing so, the firm moves its production point to point G. By doing so, the firm moves its production point from point B to point G. From point B to point G. To point G. At point G, the firm utilizes 10 units of labor similar to point B, but capital input has increased. Capital input has increased from 20 to 25. At point G, how much they produce? G belongs to which isochron? Q1, Q2 or Q3? Point G belongs to Q1. At Q1, the firm produces only 100. Then when moving from point B to G, how much is marginal product of capital? What is marginal product of capital? Marginal product of capital is delta Q divided by delta K. delta Q. What has happened to Q? Q has reduced. Q has reduced from 200 to 100 by 100. What has happened to capital? Capital input has increased from 20 to 25 by 5 units. Minus 100 divided by 5, marginal product of capital is minus 20. Minus 20. So that is why we say over this range, marginal product of capital is negative. Points on this range, points of isochords that lie over this range have negative marginal product of capital values. Marginal product of capital is negative. Therefore, a rational producer will not operate there. A rational producer will not operate there. On the other hand, we be told that a rational producer will not operate over this range because marginal product of labor is negative. Marginal product of labor is negative. How we can prove it? Let's assume that currently the firm is producing at point E with 10 units of capital and 20 units of labor. Currently the firm is producing at point E with 20 units of labor and 10 units of capital. Point E belongs to Q2. Point E belongs to Q2. So output level corresponds to the point E is 200 units. Let's assume that while keeping the capital amount constant, the firm increases its labor input from 20 to 30. 20 to 30. So by doing so, they move their production point from E to point H. At point H, the firm utilizes 30 units of labor and 10 units of capital. At point H, how much they produce? Only 100. At point H, the firm produces only 100. Then, when moving from point E to H, what is marginal product of labor? Marginal product of labor is delta Q over delta L. Delta Q, what has happened to Q? Q has fallen by 100 units. What has happened to L? L has increased by 10 units. So minus 100 divided by 10, the result is minus 10. So marginal product of labor is minus 10. So that is, with that we understand that over these portions of isochords, marginal product of labor is negative, so that a rational producer will not operate there. A rational producer will not operate there. So marginal product of capital is negative here, marginal product of labor is negative here. Within those two regions, we have this economic region of production. Economic region of production is here, and within the economic region of production, marginal product of capital is positive. At the same time, marginal product of labor is positive. Therefore, a rational producer decides only to produce within the economic region of production. The positively sloped portions of isochords, these portions are positively sloped. These portions are positively sloped. So, positively sloped portions of isochords are irrelevant for a rational producer. positively sloped portions of isopods are irrelevant for a rational producer because here these positively sloped portions of isopods report negative marginal product of capital. These positively sloped portions of isopods report negative marginal product of labor. So only negatively sloped portions of isopods are relevant for the rational producer. Only negatively sloped portions of isopods are relevant for a rational producer. Because when uh, isopod portions are negatively sloped over those isopods, marginal product of capital and marginal product of labor both are positive. Clear? Anything you want to clarify? Okay, let's take a break for 10 minutes. We will meet at 9:35.
Chavina ja mä ikään kuin häikkiä kädessä pitää häneltä näin kuin tähän.
Classroom again. Aku kecil itu.
Chavina ja
Dan balik mana? Tiga juga. Hati lucu, lucu, badai bilang lucu, lucu.
Beda?
Jika hati lucu, lucu.
Badai.
Evila, Evila, puta Evila. Ikuti, sire maria gabi. Pokoknya ada.
Oh my god. Oh shit.
Okay. In the previous discussion, we understood that rational producers operate only over negatively sloped portions of isopods. Rational producers operate only over the negatively sloped portions of isopods. Rational producers operate only over the negatively sloped portions of isopods. Rational producers operate only over the negatively sloped portions of isopods. The typical shape of an isopod is this. Typically, an isopod curve takes a shape like this. So what is this shape? It is convex to the origin. Convex to the origin. Typically, typically an isopod curve is convex to the origin. Convex to the origin means this shape. It is convex to the origin. Convex to the origin. When the isopod curve is convex to the origin, when moving down along the curve, what happens to the marginal rate of technical substitution? It declines. It declines. Isopod curves are convex to the origin. Isopod curves are convex to the origin when the two inputs are when the two inputs are imperfect substitutes. When the two inputs are imperfect substitutes, they are not perfectly substitutable. They are substitutable, but only to a certain extent. They are substitutable, but only to a certain extent. That is the meaning of imperfect substitutes. So isopod curves are convex to the origin for imperfect substitutes. So what happens to the nature of the isopod when the two inputs are perfect substitutes? When the two inputs are perfect substitutes, how the isopod curve behaves? Before that, give me two examples for two perfect substitutes. Two perfect substitutes. Two perfectly substitutable inputs. Two perfectly substitutable inputs. Give some examples. Example, let's say I want to produce 1 kilogram of potato chips. Potato chips. I want to produce 1 kilogram of potato chips. So that is my output. To produce 1 kilogram of potato chips, I can use 1 kilogram of local potato as one input, or else I can use imported potato, 1 kilogram of imported potato. So are they perfect substitutes? Yes, they are perfect substitutes. To produce 1 kilogram of potato chips, I can use either 1 kilogram of local potato or 1 kilogram of imported potato. So one input is enough. One input is enough to produce 1 kilogram of potato chips. Either this or this. Or a combination is also possible. Combination is also possible. We can use 5 grams of 500 grams of local potato and 500 grams of imported potato to produce 100 kilogram of potato chips. That is also possible. The combination is also possible. Give another example. To produce, let's say, 1 kilogram of dessert. To produce 1 kilogram of dessert, we can use 1 kilogram of yogurt, 1 kilogram of yogurt or 1 kilogram of curd. To produce 1 kilogram of dessert, we can use either 1 kilogram of yogurt or 1 kilogram of curd or a combination of yogurt and curd. Here also, to produce 1 kilogram of potato chips, we can use either 1 kilogram of local potato or 1 kilogram of imported potato or a combination. The production can be done only with one input. Producing the output only with one input is also possible. That is the nature of perfect substitutes. So, how to show the isomorph curve for two perfect substitutes? Let's say we want to draw the isomorph curve for potato chips. So here we put local potato, here I put imported potato. Isomorph curve will look like this. It will be a straight line. It will be a straight line. To produce 1 kilogram of potato chips, we can use 1 kilogram of imported potato or 1 kilogram of local potato or any combination of these. Any combination of these. To produce 2 kilograms, how to show the isomorph curve? It will be like this. It will like this. Look like this. 2 kilograms of local potato and 2 kilograms of imported potato will need to produce 2 kilograms of potato chips. Or a combination is also possible. So that is how the isopod curve for two perfectly substitutable inputs behave. It's a straight line. It's a downward sloping straight line. It's a downward sloping straight line. And the slope is always constant. The slope is always constant. For a straight line, the slope is always constant. So what is the slope for here? What is the slope for this isopod? Vertical difference divided by horizontal difference. Vertical difference is 1. Horizontal difference is 1. So let's say we move from this point to this point. We move from point A to B. When moving from point A to B, imported potato declines by 1 kilogram. Local potato increases by 1 kilogram. So what is the slope? Minus 1 divided by plus 1. So the slope is 1. For the second isopod, again the slope is plus. Slope is minus 1. Slope is minus 1. When moving from point C to D, quantity declines by 2. Quantity declines by 2. And here quantity increases by 2. So minus 2 divided by 2, the slope is minus 1. The slope is minus 1. And MRTS is 1. MRTS is 1. So don't think that the slope of isopod is always minus 1. The marginal rate of technical substitution is always 1. That is not the case. Sometimes the slope may be different. The slope value may be different from 1. For example, let's say there is a cleaning firm. There is a cleaning firm and it uses cleaning detergents, cleaning liquids. And they have two options. They can use either cleaning liquid A or cleaning liquid B. But the thing is, cleaning liquid A is twice effective. Cleaning liquid A is twice effective than B. That means, if we clean a surface of 1 cubic meter, 1 square meter, to clean, let's say to clean an area of 10 square meter, to clean an area of 10 square meter from cleaning detergent B, it requires 1 liter. It requires 1 liter. But from A, it requires only 500 milliliters because A is twice effective than B. So in this case, how do we draw the isopod curve? We put A here, we put B here. So to clean an area of 10 square meters, it requires only 500 milliliters of A or 1 liter of B. So rather than saying 500 milliliters, we can say 0.5 liters. 0.5 liters. So this is the isopod. Still it's a straight line. Still it's a straight line, but the slope is different. slope is no longer 1. Here the slope was 1. The marginal rate of technical substitution was 1. But here marginal rate of technical substitution is not 1. What is the marginal rate of technical substitution here? Horizontal vertical difference divided by horizontal difference. Vertical difference is minus 1. Horizontal difference is 0.5. Minus 1 divided by 0.5, it is minus 2. This is the slope. And marginal rate of technical substitution is 2. Anyway, what we understand with this explanation is for two perfectly substitutable inputs, the isochron curve is a downward sloping straight line. It's a downward sloping straight line. And the slope is constant. Slope is constant. At any point, the slope is fixed. At any point, the slope is fixed. It can be 1, or it can be 2, or it can be 3, any number. But the thing is, at any point, the slope is the same. Got it? So the slope value will depend on the nature of the product, so nature of the inputs. Here, because of the effectiveness, because of the difference in effectiveness, we can use either 1 liter of B or 500 milliliters of A. Because of that, the slope becomes, or the marginal rate of technical substitution becomes 2. In this case, to produce 1 kilogram of potato chips, we can use either 1 kilogram of imported potato or 1 kilogram of local potato. Therefore, in this case, the slope is 1. So the slope can be different from case to case. But anyhow, the slope value will not change along the curve. The value of the slope will not change along the curve. Good morning, sir. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. Today indoors, Mami. Oh, hi, sir. Okay, so thank you. Hi, sir. Have you? Got it? Slope vector case second case vector value එක වෙනස් කරලා slope එක මත ප්‍රතිශත slope එක සමාන. Okay. That is the case of two perfectly substitutable inputs. That is one extreme. The other extreme is when the two inputs are perfect complements. Perfect complements. Perfect complements are the inputs to produce an output. It requires both inputs. It requires both inputs. Production cannot be done only with one input. It requires both inputs to produce one input, or one output. So it is compulsory to have both inputs, otherwise there won't be any production. Give some examples for perfect complements. Perfect complements. Let's say we want to produce a medicine, a tablet. You want to produce a tablet for medication. To produce this tablet, the firm should combine both chemical A, chemical X and chemical Y. To produce 1 kilogram of tablets, it requires to combine, let's say, 300 grams of chemical X and 700 grams of chemical Y. So both are required. Otherwise there won't be any production. So in this case, we can show the isochrone curve like this. If we put X here and if we put Y here, to produce 1 kilogram of tablets, it requires 300 grams of X and 700 grams of Y. So the efficient production point only will lie only at this corner. Efficient production point will lie only at this corner. These combinations are not efficient. This is the only efficient combination. These are not efficient. Why is that? If the firm combines 300 grams of X and 1.4 kilograms of Y, can they produce 1 kilogram of tablets? No, it's not possible. It's not possible. It's possible, but it's a waste of resources. To produce 100 kilogram of tablets, the firm can combine 300 grams of X and 1.4 kilograms of Y. But this 700 grams extra input of Y is a waste. Because only 700 grams is enough. 700 grams are enough. So this point is not efficient. On the other hand, when the firm utilizes 700 grams of Y and 600 grams of X, again producing 1 kilogram of tablets is possible, but it's a waste of resources. This 300 grams of extra amount of X is a waste. It's a waste. So therefore, rational producers will only operate at these corners. So if the firm wants to produce 2 kilograms of tablets, how much they use from X and Y? To produce 1 kilogram, they use 300 grams of chemical X and 700 grams of Y. To produce 200 kilograms, to produce 2 kilograms, what is the ratio they have? How much they use from X and how much they use from Y? They have to use 600 grams of X and 1400 grams of Y. To produce 3 kilograms of tablets, they have to use 900 grams of X and 2100 grams of Y. So they have to maintain the same ratio. What is the ratio? They have to maintain 3 to 7 ratio all the time. The firm has to maintain 3 to 7 ratio. Here the ratio is 3 to 7. Here also the ratio is 3 to 7. Here also the ratio is 3 to 7. So they should maintain the same ratio between the two inputs in order to produce the output efficiently. So the isocon curve for 2 kilograms will be this, with 1.4 kilograms of Y and 600 grams of X. They maintain the same ratio to produce the output efficiently. And efficient combinations are there at the corner points. Efficient combinations of production lie at the corner points. Other points on the isocons are not efficient because they represent some sort of waste. Got it? That's about the two extreme cases. When the inputs are perfect substitutes and when the inputs are perfect complements. Typically, in most of the time, we observe that the isocon curves are convex to the origin. Extreme cases are rare, but they are also there in the real world scenarios. But most of the time, we observe isocon curves which are convex to the origin with imperfect substitutes. Imperfect substitutes. This is the isocon curve of imperfect substitutes. Input 1 and input 2. Imperfect substitute means substitutable but to a certain extent. For example, let's say there is a wooden toy manufacturer. A wooden toy manufacturer. The firm can use labor mostly so that workers have to cut wood. They have to create shapes from the portions of wood, and they have to color the wood portions, and they have to pack everything manually. So most of the tasks are performed by labor. Capital usage is very less. Only simple equipment are used in the production process. So this is labor intensive. Labor intensive. So if the firm follows a labor intensive production, then if we assume labor is here and capital is here, the production combination will lie somewhere here. The firm uses labor mostly with limited quantity of capital. If the firm uses machines mostly, then capital input is huge. So to cut wood, they use machines. To shape the wood portions, they use machines. To color the wood portions, they use machines. The involvement of workers is very less. Involvement of workers in the production process is very less. But it's about the same firm, the same wooden toy manufacturing firm. In this case, they are labor intensive. Here they are capital intensive. So when they are capital intensive, they will use capital mostly with a limited amount of labor. Got it? They are substitutable, but only to a certain extent. Anyhow, there should be some sort of labor involvement. Also, there should be some sort of capital usage. They are imperfect substitutes. Okay. These are the shapes of isopods. We talked about 3 different shapes of isopods. One is convex to the origin, and the isopod curves are convex to the origin for the imperfect substitutes. And the second case is isopod curves which are straight lines, downward sloping straight lines. Isopod curves are downward sloping straight lines for perfect substitutes. And the third case is L-shaped isopods. For L-shaped isopods, the inputs are perfect complements. Perfect complements. Okay. Now we are going to discuss the cost part of our picture. Costs. To show the behavior of costs in the long run, we use iso-cost curves. Iso-cost curves. Iso-cost curves an iso-cost curve shows all possible combinations of 2 inputs that costs the same amount. That costs the same amount. It shows all possible combinations of 2 inputs that cost the same amount. So if we show an iso-cost curve in a diagram, it looks like this. So let's say these are the combinations of labor and capital. These are combinations of labor and capital, and all these combinations, any of these combinations cost 10,000 rupees. 10,000 rupees. So here let's say the firm utilizes 10 units of capital with 0 units of labor. Cost is 10,000. If the firm utilizes 5 units of capital with 5 units of labor, the cost is 10,000. If the firm utilizes 10 units of labor with 0 units of capital, again the cost is 10,000. So at any point on this curve, the cost of the two inputs is the same. It's 10,000 here. For example, it's 10,000. So that is the idea of isocost curves. Let's say that the total cost is 10,000 and one capital input costs 1,000, price of capital is 1,000 and price of labor is, let's say, 500 and the total cost is 10,000. So these numbers should be changed like and 20. 10 and 20. Just change these numbers to 10 and 20. So when producing with 10 units of capital, with 0 units of labor, how much is the total cost? 10 units of capital with 0 units of labor. The cost is 1,000 into 10, 10,000. And in the midpoint, at the midpoint, 5 units of capital with 10 units of labor. How much is the cost? 5 into 1,000 plus 10 into 500. The cost is again 10,000. And when producing only with labor, 20 units of labor and 0 units of capital, how much is the cost? 20 into 500, again 10,000. Again 10,000. So we can give an expression for the isocost. C equals total cost equals price of capital is the rental rate. Price of labor is the wage rate. Okay. So total cost is wage rate multiplied by amount of labor utilized plus rental rate into amount of capital utilized. Price of capital is the rental rate, price of labor is the wage rate. So the total cost can be expressed in this way: wage rate multiplied by the amount of labor utilized plus rental rate into the amount of capital utilized. This is the labor cost. This is the capital cost. Total cost has two components, labor cost and capital cost. Labor cost and capital cost. So with this expression for the isocost curve, this is the expression for the isocost curve. No, this is the expression for the cost. This is the expression for the cost. With this expression for the cost, we can derive an expression for the isocost. Based on this, we derive an expression for the isocost. How we can do it? This is the expression for total cost. Based on this, we are going to derive an expression for the for the isocost. In this isocost curve, the vertical axis is about capital. The vertical axis is capital. So when we are when we are deriving an expression for the isocost, the subject should be capital. The subject should be capital, right? Because we put capital on the vertical axis. When we are deriving an expression for this isocost curve, the subject should be capital. Capital equals the intercept minus the slope, and it should be multiplied by label. K equals intercept minus slope into L. K equals intercept minus slope into L. So this is the standard expression for the isocost. We should find the values for the intercept and we should find the value for the slope. That is our task next. Find values or find an expression for the intercept and find an expression for the slope. So based on this, we will derive an expression for the isocost, and the expression for the isocost will look like this. Still we don't know about the intercept, still we don't know about the slope, but we can do it. We can find them based on this. So we have this. C equals WL plus RK. We want to keep K apart. We will, for that, as the first step, we will keep this RK on this side, and we will bring this WL to the side of C. So then it becomes C minus WL. RK equals C minus WL. We keep RK as it is and we bring WL to the side of C. And then we want to isolate K. To isolate K, what we have to do? We can divide both sides by R. Then this R to R get cancelled out. On the left hand side, we have K only. On the right hand side, what we have? C over R minus W over R into L. K equals C over R minus W over R into L. So now we have derived an expression for isocost. This is the expression for isocost. It is in this framework. We have K on the left hand side as the subject, and we have the intercept, we have the slope. Slope is multiplied by K. So what is the intercept? Intercept is this. What is the slope? Slope is minus W over R. So K equals C over R minus W over R into L. That is the standard expression for an isocost. The intercept is C over R and the slope is minus W over R. C over R. C is what? The total cost. R is the rental rate. What does it mean? Total cost divided by the rental rate. we will have a number after dividing the total cost by the rental rate. What is the interpretation that we can give to that number? Total cost divided by rental rate. What is it? We have a total cost and we have the rental rate. Total cost divided by rental rate. What is it? The maximum number of capital we can purchase from the using the total cost. Okay? That is the maximum number of capital that can be purchased out of the total cost. So intercept is maximum number of capital units that can be bought with the total cost. With the total budget. And the slope is W over R. Weight rate divided by the rental rate minus. So if the values are here, if the values look like here, what is the intercept? What is the intercept? K equals, what is the intercept? C over R. C over R. C is 10,000, R is 1,000. What is the intercept? 10. 10. And what is the slope? W over R. W is 500. R is 1,000 into 10. That is 10,000 divided by 1,000. 10 minus 0.5. 10. So the isocost curve for this information, is 10 minus K equals 10 minus 0.5 L. Isocost curve for this given information is K equals 10 minus 0.5 L. So if we draw an isocost curve with these numbers, how it will look like? We put labor here, we put capital here. What is the intercept? Intercept value should be this. It should be 10. And it is obviously a downward sloping curve, which is a straight line because slope is fixed. Slope is fixed and it is a negative value. The slope is minus 0.5. Minus 0.5. This is the maximum amount of capital that can be bought with the total budget. This is the slope minus W over R. This is the vertical intercept actually. Vertical intercept. Then what is the number here? What is the number here? This is the horizontal intercept. But in the formula we have the vertical intercept. We don't directly observe the horizontal intercept in this formula, but with the given numbers we can find it. Well, horizontal intercept is not there in the formula. Directly we can't calculate it, but we can calculate it, but not directly. We don't see it. What is this value? This is the maximum amount of capital that can be bought with the total budget. With that logic, this should be maximum number of labor that can be bought with the given budget. How much is it? Total cost divided by the wage rate. This is the maximum amount of labor that can be bought with the total cost. How much is it? Total cost is 10,000 and wage rate is 500. So at maximum, 20 units of labor can be bought. So this number should be 20. So if the numbers are given to you, you can easily derive this line. For that, you need to calculate only this value and this value. This is the maximum amount of capital that can be bought with the total budget. This is the maximum amount of labor that can be bought with the total budget. So simply by dividing total cost by the rental rate, you can find the maximum amount of capital. Simply by dividing the total cost by the wage rate, you can find the maximum amount of labor. So by combining these 2 points, you can derive the isocost curve. Clear? If the numbers are given, you simply want to find only the vertical intercept and the horizontal intercept to derive the isocost curve. To find the vertical intercept, you can derive the total budget by the rental rate. That will give the maximum amount of capital that can be bought with the total budget. And to find the horizontal intercept, you have to divide the total cost by the wage rate. That will give the number which is the maximum amount of labor that can be bought with the total budget. Okay, the next task. So we finished discussing the production side and the cost side. Production side in the long run is represented by what? Isocon. Production side in the long run is represented by isocon curves. Cost side of a firm in the long run is represented by iso cost curves. Now we are combining those 2 concepts, production and cost, in one picture. Using that picture, we will find the long run producer equilibrium for 2 inputs. Long run producer equilibrium for 2 inputs. Long run producer equilibrium in the long run for the 2 inputs will be there when the isocost curve is tangent to the isocon curve. When the 2 curves are tangent to each other, that is the point where the long run producer equilibrium is found. We have this isocost curve and we have this isocon curve. When the 2 curves are tangent to each other, that is the equilibrium, producer equilibrium in the long run. Producer equilibrium in the long run. So at equilibrium, the firm utilizes L star level of labor and K star level of capital. At equilibrium, isocon curve is tangent to the isocos curve. When two curves are tangent to each other, their slopes become equal. Their slopes become equal. So what is the technical name that we give for the slope of the isocon curve? That is marginal rate of technical substitution. And what is the technical name we can give for the slope of an isocos curve? That is the input price ratio. Input price ratio, which is W over R. So here, marginal rate of technical substitution is a positive value. Here also we avoid the negative value, negative sign. We don't mention the negative sign here as well. W over R. So at equilibrium, marginal rate of technical substitution, which is the slope of isocon, is equal to the slope of isocos curve, which is called input price ratio, W over R. So marginal rate of technical substitution is MPK over MPL. So MPL over MPK. Input price ratio is W over R. So at equilibrium, MPL over MPK is equal to W over R. We can simplify it further by applying cross multiplication. We can apply cross multiplication and simplify this further. MPL into R equals MPK into W. MPL divided by W equals MPK divided by R. By applying cross multiplication, based on this expression, we derive a new expression, and this new expression is more economically meaningful. This is more economically meaningful. How we can interpret this? Marginal product of labor divided by W equals to marginal product of capital divided by R. How it becomes a meaningful interpretation, a meaningful expression. MPL over W, what does it mean? That is the additional output or extra output that can be obtained by spending one additional rupee on labor. Additional output that can be obtained by spending one additional rupee on labor. And what is MPK over R? Additional output that can be obtained by spending one additional rupee on capital. MPK over R is additional output that can be obtained by spending one additional rupee on capital. So at equilibrium, these two values should be the same. Additional rupee on labor should derive some amount of additional output, and the same level of output should be generated by spending 1 additional rupee on capital. Got it? So to simplify it further, we can say it like this. An additional rupee on each input. An additional rupee on each input generates the same additional output from each input. An additional rupee on each input generates the same additional output from each input. So that is the condition for long run producer equilibrium. If MPL over W is greater than MPK over R, what happens? If MPL over W is greater than MPK over R, what happens? Is it an equilibrium? Is it an equilibrium? No. Why it's not an equilibrium? Because producing with labor is more beneficial here. Because 1 additional rupee on labor produces more extra output than capital. Therefore, the firm will tend to use more and more labor. The firm will tend to use more and more labor at this point, at this situation. Because labor is more beneficial towards the firm. Because 1 additional rupee on labor generates a higher additional output than that of capital. So firm tends to increase labor and decrease capital. If the situation is this, marginal product of labor over W is less than marginal product of capital over R, what the firm tends to do. Now here, capital is more beneficial. Capital is more beneficial. If that is the case, firm tends to use more capital and less of labor. So firm will tend to increase capital input while decreasing the labor input. At equilibrium, an additional rupee on each input generates the same additional output from each input. So they are equally beneficial. They are equally beneficial. So therefore, there is no tendency for the producer to change the level of labor and level of capital. There is no tendency for the producer to change the level of labor and to change the level of capital. The firm will use the same amount of labor and same amount of capital. There is no tendency to change them. No motivation to change them. Because both labor and capital are equally beneficial. Got it? So when MPL over W is greater than MPK over R, the firm will tend to use the firm will tend to increase labor input while decreasing the capital input. When the MPK over R is greater than MPL over W, the firm will tend to increase capital input while decreasing labor input. But when MPL over W is equal to MPK over R, there is no tendency for the firm to change the labor input and capital input. They will keep going with the existing level of labor and capital. Okay. This is about the producer equilibrium for a single level of output. For a single level of output. But firm can expand its output level in the long run. So this is how they expand their production. They are expanding. This may be 100 units, this may be 200 units, 300 units, 400 units, 500 units. Likewise, they plan for expansions. They plan for expansions. And for each higher output level, they have separate equilibrium points. For each higher output levels, they have separate equilibrium points. So this is the equilibrium point for the next higher output level. This is the equilibrium level for the next higher output level. So by combining these equilibrium output levels, we can draw a line. We can draw a line, and that line is called the expansion path. That line is called the expansion path. Got it? So expansion path shows the combinations of capital and labor. It shows the combinations of capital and labor that meet the equilibrium condition or efficiency condition of MPL over W equals MPK over R. That is the expansion path. Expansion path is not necessarily should be a straight line. It can take different shapes like this, like this, like this, or something. It depends on the nature of the production process. Only for simplicity here, we assume that the expansion path is a straight line, but it is not the case all the time. It may have different shapes. So I'm not going to discuss this mathematical numerical example here because it will take a lot of time to discuss this. So with this we talk long run production theory. What we learned here is we learned about the isochron curves. You should be familiar with the definition of isochron curves. And you should be familiar with the slope of an isochron curve and its technical term, marginal rate of technical substitution. We always express marginal rate of technical substitution as a positive number. We also can calculate marginal rate of technical substitution in this way, MPL over MPK. And then you should know about the ridge lines and economic region of production. Within the economic region of production, isochron curves are negatively sloped, and beyond the ridge lines, isochron curves are positively sloped. And you should know why positively sloped portions are not relevant for a rational producer, and why portions within the economic region of production are relevant to a rational producer. Also, you should know how to derive the upper ridge line and how to derive the lower ridge line. Then you should know different shapes of isochron curves. And next, you should know about the isocos curve, its definition and its standard formula. And if the numbers are given, you should know how to derive an isocost curve. If the numbers are given, total cost, wage rate, and cost of capital or rental rate these numbers are given. These three numbers are given. You should be able to derive an expression for the isocost curve. Also, if these three numbers are given, you should be able to graphically show the isocost curve. And then you should be able to graphically represent the producer equilibrium. Also, you should be able to express it with this expression NPL over NPK over equals to W over R, and also with this expression. And you should be able to interpret this expression economically, meaningfully, and also you should be able to define or interpret why only this is the equilibrium condition. Why this is not an equilibrium. Also why this is not an equilibrium. So that part is also expected from you. Okay, that's all about long run production theory. Any questions so far? Yes. Is it okay if we have the online quiz next week? You can do it at home. Okay. So it's going to be an online test. Online quiz. Have you attended an online quiz before through the LMS? No. No. Okay. Then I will upload a sample quiz as well. So you can do it to be familiarized how to conduct an online quiz. And what do you prefer? The real exam, shall we have it on Friday night? Are you all free on Friday night? I'm not going to observe you, what you are doing. I will specify a time, maybe from 9 to 10 or 10 to 11. Then you can attempt the quiz by yourself. Is that fine? 10 to 11 or 9 to 10? What do you prefer? Yes?
Hello, sir.
9 to 10? Okay? Okay. It will be 1 hour quiz, an online one. Okay, we will have it to next Friday. Okay? I will upload all the guidelines before the session, and if you have anything doubtful, you can contact me. I will give my email address as well in the guidelines. Okay, we will write up here. Thank you.